Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. France, Holland, two sides with contrasting forms. France trying to rediscover their World Cup 2018 form, whereas Holland looked their best since World Cup 2014. How did Holland beat France? Where did France go wrong? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how Holland beat France. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we're going to break down the first half, see how Holland approached the game, where France went wrong, then get to the second half and see how both sides changed up before Holland killed off the game in the 90th minute. But first, let's get to the starting lineup. So we look at France, no real surprises. It's pretty much more of a 4-3-3 that dropped into a 4-5-1. They had Giroud up front, Mbappe and Griezmann out in the wider areas, and in midfield with no Paul Pogba, they had Matuidi and Conte ahead of Nzonzi. Then we get to Holland. Holland in more of a 4-3-3 as well. Sometimes it looks like a 4-2-3-1 based on the movement of De Roon and De Jong. But up front, they went with Bergwijn, they went with Babel, and they went with Memphis Depay. And in midfield, Wijnaldum was slightly ahead of De Roon and De Jong, who dropped a bit deeper. So first, let's get into how Holland approached the game and where France went wrong in the first half. So 4-3-3 against 4-5-1. France here looking to sit a bit deeper, looking to play on the counterattack, but they did encounter some issues. One of the issues was the fact that they had Giroud trying to sit on De Roon. That was one big factor. So he was trying to sit on De Roon. De Ligt and Van Dijk were able to hold the ball, able to try and play those diagonals out, trying to push forward with it. The other issue here was that Mbappe, not really renowned for his ability to track back. So with him playing narrow and half-heartedly trying to cut out the pass into Dumfries, he was able to push forward. They often wanted to give Matuidi that job of pushing out to him, but that left him leaving gaps in midfield, and eventually it was just a job that he was unable to do. What also happened was that now you have the attacking three who aren't really positioned in those roles. They move into various positions, they interchange throughout. Often, most of the time, they are very narrow. And with them being very narrow, what happens here is that Digne ends up getting pulled to Bergwijn, or if Babel or Memphis pull out into those positions, they're sucked in there. And that again gives Dumfries, who was one of their key attacking outlets, more space to drive down the right channel, and that was a big problem for them. With that being said, you had De Jong dropping into that space as well. So now you have a 2v1 in that area with the center backs pushing forward. At times, we saw Griezmann step to him, trying to close him down. And when you look at it, Griezmann also had to deal with Daley Blind, who was able to push forward. This didn't make sense by Deschamps when they had the opportunity to possibly swap Mbappe and Griezmann. Griezmann, more renowned for tracking back, doing the hard work, could sit on Dumfries when required, ensure that he isn't a threat, whereas Mbappe, even if he does slack on Blind doesn't have the pace to really get back, to push forward with Mbappe being able to recover. So that was a big issue there for them, because what happens here now is that Conte is ending up cutting off the passing lane to Wijnaldum, will try to get the ball into those positions. And when you think about it, they were just not really positioned the right way based on the fact that Dumfries was able to get forward. Blind eventually was getting forward because Griezmann was sometimes getting caught onto those positions. If you have Matuidi step out, or what happened after that was as Giroud tried to push forward, you would have Matuidi step out to De Roon. What happened there is that Bergwijn would tuck in, he'd pull out Digne, and again, more space for Dumfries down the right-hand side. Giroud didn't really offer much of a threat based off the fact that against De Ligt and against Van Dijk, who are very strong, he wasn't able to really link play or assert his physical dominance because he was outnumbered 2v1. And then when you look at it, both sides, neither of them really created enough chances in the first half, but Holland did go into the break with the lead. France created a lot of chances down the left through Mbappe. We're going to get to that, and then we're going to get to how Holland created their chances and what put them ahead going into halftime. So despite Holland having ample possession based off the fact that De Jong was able to drop in, France weren't wholeheartedly pressing, and they were able to monopolize the ball, sustain it, not lose it. De Jong and De Roon were key players in this first half, but the thing about France was that they weren't really getting into they weren't really conceding many dangerous chances. And that is down to the fact that Holland weren't really creating them despite having some distinct advantages in certain areas. When we look at the chances they do create, 3 come to mind. One is in the earlier stages where Darun is able to get free. What we do see here is that we see Memphis drop into that space where Matuidi is. He does that, and then we see Bergvin pull out Kimpembe. Once the pass is played in, we already see Memphis pulling off Matuidi. We see Bergvin dummy it, and it bypasses him and Kimpembe. And what happens there is that with Dumfries out wide, you have the marker pulled out of position. So when he's pulled out of position, you see Memphis being able to pick up the ball again and drive forward towards goal. Then you have Wijnaldum pulling back in. He pulls it back to Wijnaldum, and Wijnaldum forces a save from Lloris. That was one opportunity, but again, so simple, just not being able to close down the markers. Great movement from the narrow Holland midfield attacking line who are able to interchange positions and pull defenders out of position. Another opportunity that did stem from that was more of a direct one. This time you see De Ligt deliver a diagonal out into the space on the left-hand side, and it's Babel and it's Pavard who do challenge it, and he nods it down into the path of Memphis, and Memphis fires a shot on goal. But that again, just simple route one, no one picking up De Ligt, and he's able to just win the aerial duel and nod it into the space for Memphis, who forces a save. You don't want that happening on a continuous basis. It did happen here, and that was a big worry sign for France. Then we get to the goal. The goal stems from, again, a pullback ball out into the wide areas, and when the ball is pulled back, Conte doesn't get close to the marker. The ball is played into the box, and what happens here is that Nzonzi ends up nodding it in behind Kimpembe, and when he nods it in behind Kimpembe, it falls to Babel. Babel ends up taking the shot on goal from point blank range. Lloris saves it, but then it's again Wijnaldum getting ahead of Nzonzi to poke the effort into the net. They had a lot of possession. They were able to find advantages in the middle of the pitch and in wide areas. So you'd like to think that Holland deserved the lead going into halftime, but they did concede some chances. So let's get to that and see what France did right and where they were finding joy in the first half. France, on the other hand, spent ample time in the first half without the ball. When they did receive chances, a lot of it stemmed through Mbappe trying to break on the counterattack and trying to offer some sort of threat. There was one time where he did run 1v1 with De Ligt, and he was dispossessed with ease. But a lot of the other times, the chances were just not good enough. He breaks from half on one opportunity, lays it off to Griezmann. Griezmann switches it behind to Digne. At this point, Digne from deep locates Griezmann running off blind, and he's able to play the cross into the box, and Griezmann nods his effort down and into the path of Cillessen. That was arguably France's best chance in the first half. Besides that, the other chance that they do have, again, ball played in to Mbappe, and he drags out Dumfries to nod it back to Din, and what happens there to Digne, and what happens there is that you see Matuidi making the darting run into that space so that he could get the ball. What happens there is that you have De Jong tracking that run. With De Jong tracking that run, the ball is pulled back to Griezmann, who ends up laying it off for Mbappe, and Mbappe curls his effort over the net. There was one more opportunity that really comes to mind besides the time that Mbappe ran at 2 markers and played an overhead pass to Conte, and this chance does stem from Mbappe again dropping off a bit deeper, this time holding off 2 markers in Dumfries and in De Jong again. And what happens there, he holds them up, he's running at them, and he plays the overlapping back heel pass to Digne, and Digne looks to hold out on Giroud, but what happens is that Van Dijk is able to hold them off. The ball ends up falling to Blind, who clears his lines. But besides that, again, not enough bodies in the box. Mbappe offering talent, offering his strengths in bits and pieces, but again, not doing enough. Griezmann was quiet, and they weren't getting enough from the midfield because Holland were in control. So now let's get to the second half and see how both sides look to approach the game, with Holland going into halftime leading 1-0. The second half, on the other hand, saw France move to more of a 4-4-2, with Matuidi pushing out to the left, Mbappe out to the right, and Griezmann slightly in behind Giroud. They were trying to get Griezmann involved. They were trying to put Mbappe in a position where he didn't have to deal with Dumfries like we suggested in the first half, and now you had Matuidi who could deal with Dumfries. And what happened there is in the earlier stages, after the 10 minutes where nothing really happened, we saw Memphis drop into that space in between Conte and in between Matuidi to get the pass from De Ligt. As he does do that, you have Digne step to him, but he instantly plays the pass into Dumfries. Matuidi tracks the run well. When he tracks the run, he ensures that the cross doesn't go to into the box, and he clears any danger that Holland were creating down that right-hand side. And that just goes to show that in that one incident alone that could have led to a goal-scoring opportunity, the change was merited. Now we look to how Holland were able to continue their dominance because, like I said, France never really created any chances in the second half. You saw that now what happens here is that the pass is played into Memphis, who drops ahead of Nzonzi, and he drops ahead of Nzonzi to get onto the ball. He ends up turning against him, and when he turns away from him, what happens here now is that he's able to run towards goal, and you have, again, Varane stepping up to him, and when Varane steps up to him, what does he do? He back heels the ball cheekily into the path of Daley Blind. And Blind is able to scoop the ball over Pavard and drive towards the box. At that point, you have Dumfries already cutting ahead of Matuidi, breaking into the box, and he's able to rise above Digne and nod an effort on goal that Lloris pushes away, and then Lloris was able to save the rebound. From there, as we get these guys back into position, we have changes. France end up straying away from Giroud. They push Mbappe up front. They bring on for Giroud Dembele, who moves out to the left-hand side. They bring on Sissoko to replace Matuidi. So now you still have that 4-4-2. You have more pace in Mbappe kind of pushing forward. So they're looking to get something there. And what also happened when they moved to a 4-4-2 was now that they had those wider players out, the fullbacks were pushing forward as well. So the fullbacks ended up pushing out the wider players. France spent a lot of time in a 4-5-1 during the final half hour of the game. And what happened there was that with the wider players now sticking in those wide positions and the fullbacks playing forward, France were having more of the ascendancy. However, you look at Holland, they were still creating chances. You had Memphis force Lloris into a save that was pushed away for a free kick. But when you think about it, France's best chance came through one opportunity. They played out of the back. What happens here is that Nzonzi was able to step in between the midfield, because what happens is that you have Babel pushing out to Varane. You have Memphis, who should be closing Kimpembe. Wijnaldum was sitting on Conte, floating with him. So the pass is able to be played into Nzonzi. No one really gets to him until late. He's able to play the pass into Mbappe, who drops off deeper, and he slides the ball into Digne, who was ahead of Bergvin at that point. Now you have the cross played in, and with the cross played in, it's Griezmann against Van Dijk, and Griezmann's able to spin him and pop the ball over him. However, with Van Dijk still harrying him, he only pokes a tame effort on goal. From that same play, we see the ball pushed out. Bergvin's able to get the ball, and he plays it, but he is close by Conte, and he plays it into the path of Wijnaldum, who's holding off Digne. However, he continues his run, and what happens there? Wijnaldum's able to play it beyond him because Conte doesn't track him. So now Bergvin's able to break towards goal. You have Memphis now breaking towards goal. He slides it across the edge of the box. Memphis now 1v1 Pavard, breaks to the outside, fires a shot on goal that Lloris pushes away. But again, that's another opportunity from that ensuing short corner. It's Memphis again forcing Lloris into a save. That was another big thing. When you think about it, France's changes didn't really change the game after that. You think about Sissoko, and Dembele didn't offer much, and Dobele didn't offer much. Holland's substitutions didn't really change the game. They were trying to conserve their lead. They did have a 4v2 towards the end that De Jong forced another save out of Lloris. Then Sissoko committed a lazy tackle, and Memphis was able to convert his penalty to secure 3 points for Holland, which now gives them a great chance to win the group ahead of their game with Germany. But let me know what you guys think. Is this Holland side the real deal? Are they returning amongst Europe's elite? And what about France? Did they miss Pogba? Is this an identity crisis? Are they able to replicate what they did in the World Cup going forward? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.